Shadows in the stars. The Nelvari warship dreadnought cut through the void like a blade, its obsidian hull absorbing starlight rather than reflecting it. On the command deck, Admiral Kelzak ran a taloned hand over the holographic display showing the human research station. Proxima Echo hung in space before them, once pristine and bustling with scientific endeavor, now a broken shell venting atmosphere in ghostly plumes. Another victory for the hierarchy, Lieutenant Zora announced, her amphibian features splitting into what passed for a smile among their kind. This makes 17 human outposts in 3 cycles. Kelzak nodded, membrane eyes blinking in sequence. The humans are predictable. All technology, no instinct. He gestured to the soldiers assembling in the hangar bay below. Take a team and secure whatever data remains. Their quantum research might be useful. The boarding party crossed the vacuum in sleek shuttles, cutting into the station's hull with precision lasers. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. Emergency lights cast everything in a blood-red glow, revealing scorch marks and evidence of a desperate last stand. Spread out, Zora commanded. Find their servers and any survivors. The Nelvari soldiers moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, stepping over human bodies with casual indifference. In the main laboratory, they found what they were looking for, quantum processors still humming with power, storing equations that might accelerate their own technology by decades. Primitive, but clever, a technician noted, connecting extraction devices to the human computers. Zora wasn't listening. Her attention had fixed on something else, a data pad clutched in the rigid fingers of a dead scientist. She pried it loose, activating its screen with a touch. Images flickered to life, schematics for weapons beyond anything they had encountered in the war, and shadowy figures in armor unlike standard human military gear. Project Phantom, she read aloud. Interesting name for a myth. The Nelvari had heard the whispers, tales of ghost soldiers who could disappear at will, strike without warning, and vanish before retaliation. Human propaganda, they had decided. Stories to boost morale as their colonies fell one by one. No evidence had ever surfaced that such a force existed. A weak cough echoed from behind a collapsed server rack. Zora spun, weapon raised. We have a survivor. The Nelvari soldiers converged on the sound, dragging out a human male in a bloodied uniform. His face was gaunt, one eye swollen shut, but defiance burned in his remaining gaze. Captain Darius Frost, he croaked, reading the insignia on his chest. Science Division. Zora knelt beside him, showing him the data pad. Tell me about Project Phantom. Darius laughed, a wet sound that ended in coughing. Still, calling them a project? After all this time. They're stories, Zora said dismissively. Tales to frighten young soldiers. We let you believe that. Darius winced as he shifted. Made you. Complacent. Admiral Kelzak's voice crackled through Zora's communicator. Lieutenant, return to the ship immediately. We're detecting anomalies. What kind of anomalies? She asked, eyes never leaving the wounded human. Energy signatures. Moving too fast for our tracking systems. Darius smiled through bloodied teeth. They're here. The lights throughout the station flickered, then stabilized at half power. The temperature dropped suddenly, condensation forming on metal surfaces. Zora felt something ancient stir in her genetic memory, the instinct of prey sensing predator. Secure the human, she ordered. We're leaving. But as 2 soldiers moved to grab Darius, something dark detached from the shadows behind them. Not a shape so much as an absence where something should be visible. The first soldier dropped without a sound, neck twisted at an impossible angle. The second managed half a scream before a blade materialized through his chest. Zora fired her plasma weapon into the darkness. The bolts illuminated the room in staccato flashes, revealing nothing but her own soldiers backing toward the exit. Defensive formation, she barked. Back to the shuttle. They moved as one, training overriding fear. But the corridors that had seemed simple minutes before now felt like a maze, with paths that should have been straight somehow leading them in circles. They're manipulating the station, a technician whispered. Changing gravity fields, redirecting our NAV systems. 3 more soldiers disappeared during their retreat, Their one moment, gone the next, not even bodies left behind. When they finally reached the airlock where their shuttle waited, only Zora and two others remained. The shuttle's hatch opened. Inside stood a figure in matte black armor that seemed to drink the light. No reflections, no highlights, just the suggestion of a human shape. A helmet with no visible visor concealed its face. "You were warned," the figure said, voice modulated to an inhuman register. "Proxima Sector is off-limits." Zora raised her weapon. "The hierarchy acknowledges no human boundaries." "We are not the humans, you know." More figures emerged from the shuttle, 5, then 10, materializing as if from nowhere. Each wore the same light-absorbing armor, but with subtle variations in build and movement that suggested different individuals beneath. "The Phantoms," one of Zora's remaining soldiers whispered in disbelief. The lead figure tilted its head. "A name given by those who needed symbols. We outgrew it long ago." "What do you want?" Zora demanded, finger tied on her trigger. "To deliver a message." Before Zora could react, one of the figures was beside her, moving faster than her eyes could track. A hand clamped around her wrist, forcing her weapon down. "Your invasion ends here," the figure said. "Return to your territories. Do not cross the Orion line again." On the command deck of the Dreadnought, Admiral Kelzak watched with growing unease as his boarding party's life signs winked out one by one. He ordered weapons charged, prepared to sacrifice the station and his own people to eliminate whatever threat had emerged. But as he gave the command to fire, the ship's systems failed in cascading sequence. Lights died, gravity wavered, and on every screen throughout the vessel appeared a simple message. "We are not legends. We are your reckoning." Back on the station, Darius Frost watched as the Phantoms secured the surviving Nelvari. His breathing was labored now, life ebbing away despite the medical attention one of the armored figures provided. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "The years of hiding, letting them believe we were broken." The lead Phantom removed its helmet, revealing the face of a woman with skin marked by luminescent circuitry that pulsed beneath the surface. Her eyes held no visible iris or pupil, just reflective darkness. "They thought our legends were just stories," she said, voice softer without the modulation, until the truth hit back. Darius closed his eyes, satisfied. The Nelvari would learn what humanity truly was when pushed to the edge of extinction, and the galaxy would never be the same. Reckoning of the Forgotten. The Nelvari flagship Celestial Talon drifted at the edge of the Orion Nebula, its vast silhouette backlit by swirling cosmic gases. On the bridge, Supreme Commander Vexthal paced before the tactical display, mandibles clicking with agitation as reports from across the fleet streamed in. 7 vessels lost in 3 days, he hissed. No distress calls. No debris fields. Just gone. High Strategist Mira, her scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of computer terminals, manipulated the holographic star chart. The disappearances form a pattern. "They're hurting us, pushing our fleet toward the abandoned mining sector." "Impossible," Vexthal growled. "No human force possesses such capabilities." The words had barely left his mouth when the bridge doors sealed with a pneumatic hiss. Emergency lights flickered on as primary systems failed across the ship. The crew froze, their four-fingered hands reaching for weapons that suddenly seemed inadequate. "Security breach," the ship's AI announced dispassionately. "Unknown entities detected in sectors 7 through 13. Myra's eyes widened. "That's half the ship." The main view screen activated without command, revealing a human figure standing in the Talon's engine room. Unlike the armor-clad Phantoms, this woman wore a simple black uniform with no insignia. Her hair was cropped close to her skull, and a network of silver implants traced her jawline and temples. "I am Commander Nix Vega," she stated, her voice calm and measured. "Your invasion force has violated sovereign human space for the last time." Vexthal straightened to his full height. "The hierarchy acknowledges no human sovereignty. Your species rejected our generous terms for integration." "Integration?" Nix's laugh was cold. "You mean subjugation, genetic modification, cultural erasure." Behind her, figures in the now familiar black armor materialized, each positioning themselves at critical systems throughout the engine room. You've misunderstood something fundamental about humans, Commander Vexthal, Nix continued. We don't break under pressure. We transform. The tactical display updated, showing Nelvari ships throughout the sector suddenly going dark, their transponders silent. What are you? Vexthal demanded. 20 years ago, when your kind first appeared in our system, humanity faced extinction. Our governments surrendered, our militaries crumbled, our colonies fell. Nix walked closer to the camera. But some of us refused to accept defeat. On the bridge of the Talon, officers frantically tried to regain control of their systems. Nothing responded. Project Phantom began as desperation, volunteers willing to undergo experimental procedures to become something beyond human to save humanity. Nix's eyes reflected no light, like pools of liquid shadow. Neural interfaces that merged mind and machine. Genetic modifications that enhanced our natural abilities. Quantum displacement technology that your scientists still consider theoretical. The ship shuddered as secondary explosions rippled through lower decks. We were forgotten by our own kind, Nix continued. Classified. Denied. Officially, we never existed. This allowed us to operate in the darkness, studying your weaknesses, sabotaging your advances. Mira turned to her commander, voice hushed. The mysterious accidents at our research facilities, the corrupted data, the disappearing scout ships. All us, Nix confirmed. For 2 decades, we've been dismantling your war machine piece by piece. Today, we finish what we started. The bridge doors slid open, revealing 3 phantoms. Unlike their commander, they remained helmeted, faceless and silent. Your fleet is neutralized, Nix said from the screen. Your communication networks are severed. Right now, similar operations are underway at every Nelvari outpost in human space. Vexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of distress his species rarely displayed. This is an act of war. No, Nix corrected. This is an act of survival. One of the phantoms stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a face marked with the same circuitry as Nix's. His eyes, however, retained human pupils, though they glowed with an unnatural amber light. I am Major Orion Blackwood, he announced. Former prisoner of War Camp Delta. For 7 years, I watched your kind experiment on human captives. Today, those experiments end. Vexthal recognized the name. Blackwood had been a decorated military strategist before the war, presumed killed during the Battle of Mars. His presence here, transformed but very much alive, shattered everything the Nelvari thought they knew about humanity's capabilities. What do you want? Vexthal asked, defeat evident in his posture. Unconditional withdrawal from all human territories, Orion stated. Return of all prisoners. Acknowledgement of human sovereignty beyond the Orion line. The hierarchy will never agree. They already have, Nix interrupted from the screen. While we've been talking, similar conversations have been occurring on every Nelvari command ship. Your ruling council has received our terms, and the evidence of what happens when they're rejected. The screen split to show footage from other vessels, Nelvari ships imploding, stations venting atmosphere, defense systems turned against their operators. You can't control an entire species through fear, Mira protested. Orion's expression remained impassive. We learned that tactic from you. Throughout the Talon, systems began reactivating. Navigation returned, followed by life support and communications. The Phantoms stepped back, their message delivered. The choice is simple, Nix concluded. Respect our boundaries or face extinction. We've proven we can deliver on that threat. As suddenly as they had appeared, the Phantoms vanished, not retreating through doors or corridors, but simply ceasing to be visible, their quantum displacement technology making mockery of physical space. On the bridge of the Celestial Talon, Vexthal received the transmission from the Hierarchy Council. Full withdrawal ordered, immediate cessation of hostilities. The war was over, not with humanity's surrender, but with their unexpected ascendance. 3 days later, as the last Nelvari ships crossed back over the Orion line, Commander Nix Vega stood in the observation dome of Phantom Base, a station hidden in the dark side of Europa. Beside her, Orion Blackwood watched the tactical display confirm the retreat. Will they stay away? He asked. Nix's eyes reflected the stars. They thought our legends were just stories until the truth hit back. They won't forget that lesson easily. And our own people? Will they accept what we become? She turned to him, the circuitry beneath her skin pulsing with energy harvested from the quantum realm itself. They don't need to understand us. They only need to know that humanity will never be conquered again. In the void beyond, the phantom ships moved in formation, shadows among shadows, guardians of a species that had transformed defeat into its greatest weapon, evolution. Architects of shadow. The Earth Alliance Council chamber fell silent as Commander Nix Vega entered. Unlike her battlefield appearance, she now wore a formal uniform, though still unmarked by insignia or rank. The circuitry beneath her skin glowed faintly in the dim light, impossible to conceal completely. 7 counselors sat around the circular table, representatives of what remained of human government. They had been summoned here, to the underground facility beneath the ruins of Geneva, to face a truth they had long denied. Commander Vega, Council President Thaddeus Hammond began, his voice betraying unease. The Council acknowledges receipt of your report on the Nelvari withdrawal. Nix remained standing, hands clasped behind her back. Not my report, Mr. President. The Phantom's report. A program that officially doesn't exist, noted Counselor Wei, her expression skeptical. Yet somehow negotiated peace terms that our diplomatic corps failed to achieve for 2 decades. We didn't negotiate, Nix corrected. We demonstrated consequences. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing footage of Nelvari ships retreating across the Orion line. Stellar cartography indicated a complete withdrawal from all contested systems. The question before this council, Hammond said carefully, is what happens now. Major Orion Blackwood entered silently from a side door, joining Nix. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. Unlike Nix, whose modifications were relatively subtle, Orion's transformation was more evident. The amber glow of his eyes, the metallic sheen of his skin where synthetic mesh had replaced damaged tissue, the mechanical precision of his movements. You created us to win a war you couldn't, Orion stated. That objective has been achieved. Counselor Diaz leaned forward. At what cost? The reports from captured Nelvari vessels describe actions that violate every convention of warfare. Psychological torture, manipulation of life support systems, targeted assassinations. Conventions that the Nelvari themselves ignored when they harvested human colonies for biological research, Nix responded coldly. When they converted prisoners into labor units through neural conditioning. Hammond raised a hand for calm. What Commander Vega means to say is, I speak for myself, Nix interrupted. As do all phantoms. That was part of our creation, wasn't it? Independent thought. Autonomous decision-making. The ability to operate without oversight or constraint. Silence fell across the chamber. It was Counselor Wei who finally voiced what everyone was thinking. Are you here to request recognition? Integration back into society? Her gaze traveled over Nix's modifications. That may prove challenging. Orion's laugh was unexpected, a surprisingly human sound from his transformed appearance. Integration? No, Counselor. We're here to establish boundaries. Nix activated a personal device, projecting a new map onto the chamber's displays. It showed human space divided into 2 distinct regions. The inner systems remain under Council governance, she explained. Earth, Mars, the developed colonies. You maintain your authority there, rebuilding and governing as you see fit. Her finger traced the border that separated inner from outer systems. Beyond this line, what we're calling the Phantom Perimeter, we will maintain watch. The outer colonies, the frontier worlds, and the buffer zone between human and alien space. You're proposing to create your own territory? Hammond asked incredulously. A breakaway state? Not a state, Orion corrected. A shield. Nix nodded. The Nelvari retreated because they fear what we've become. But they're not the only threat in the galaxy. Others will come, drawn by our resources, our genetic diversity, our potential as slaves or subjects. And you appoint yourselves our protectors? Diaz scoffed. Without oversight? Without accountability? Yes, Nick said simply. Because we are what you made us to be. Weapons too dangerous to acknowledge. Solutions too terrible to face. The council chambers fell into uneasy silence. It was broken by the arrival of a new figure, an elderly man who moved with the aid of a hovering mobility chair. Director Everett Mason, architect of Project Phantom, hadn't been seen publicly in 15 years. They're right, Mason said, his voice thin but firm. We created the Phantoms to do what conventional forces couldn't, to become what humanity feared becoming. He guided his chair toward the center of the room. 276 volunteers, special forces operators, death row inmates seeking redemption, terminal patients willing to sacrifice what remained of their humanity. We rebuilt them molecule by molecule, merged human ingenuity with technology beyond anything we publicly admitted possessing. Mason looked at Nyx and Orion with something between pride and regret. And then we disavowed them, denied their existence, left them to operate in shadows because we couldn't bear to see what necessity had forced us to create. Hammond's expression hardened. What exactly are you proposing, Commander Vega? A division of responsibility, Nyx answered. You rebuild. Restore what was lost. Give humanity back its civilization, its art, its compassion, everything the war stripped away. And you? Wei asked. We stand guard, Orion said. We watch the darkness between stars. We remember what happens when humanity grows complacent. Nyx's circuitry pulsed more brightly as she stepped forward. We're not asking permission, Mr. President. We're informing you of reality. The Phantoms exist. We safeguard humanity's future by remaining what we've become, its nightmares made manifest. The council debated for hours after Nyx and Orion departed. In the end, they reached the only conclusion possible: official denial, unofficial acceptance. The Phantom perimeter would not appear on public maps. No acknowledgement would be made of the transformed humans who patrolled it. Life would return to normal for the masses, rebuilding from war with hope rather than fear. 1 month later, on the observation deck of Phantom Station Erebus, Nyx watched as the modified fleet prepared to depart for their assigned sectors. Each ship, like its crew, existed in the space between human and other. Technology merged with biology in ways that defied conventional understanding. Do you regret it? Orion asked, joining her at the viewport. What we sacrificed to become this? Nyx considered the question, watching as stars reflected in the quantum-absorbing hull of their flagship. Humanity survived, she said finally. That was always the mission. Orion nodded. They'll forget us again. Write us back into legend. Let them, Nyx replied. Legends cast long shadows. And in those shadows, we'll be watching. Beyond the viewports, the Phantom fleet vanished into the void, guardians transformed by war into something beyond human. Not quite monsters, not quite heroes. Necessary legends, protecting humanity from truths it wasn't ready to face, and threats it couldn't yet imagine.